Now something lighter, more common. I decided to speak about the family, since it was one of the finalists' word among the nominees for the Word of the Year in Slovenia. In Slovenia, we organized Word of the Year as well. It was organized by the Slovenian Academy of Sciences and Arts. And the other words in this final battle were refugee, wire, precarious, Trumpism, Uberization, recycle, participle, approximation, and health. So the family didn't win. The winning word was refugee, but the fact that it appeared is surprising. So it seems that the idea of the family persists uninterrupted and still strong. In the 60s and 70s, people called for sexual liberation and lived in communes. Then 80s and the 90s came and the familiar family returned. We hoped that this would be a return with a difference, but the family is here as sickness incarnate, ironically strengthening the idea of the family even more. The family is here also as a structure, as a model, as a metaphor, as a place of origin and point of no return, we can say as an institution. Do we need to save the family or to destroy it? Do lines of descent still make sense for the artists, or have networks taken their place? From the nuclear family to the queer family, from the commune to neo-patriarchy, it lives on in many different forms, and it seems that we understand different things when we try to define family. For example, Americans' first family, not the Trumps, but the Kardashians. Robert Kardashian, best known for being the lawyer that defended O.J. Simpson. In any case, he's dead already. The family transformed, and second husband, Bruce Jenner, is one of the greatest media spectacles of our time. He divorces Kris and male to female transitions to become Caitlyn Jenner. It seems the only way to survive in this family is to be a woman. The world's attention is on this family, and it has redefined what family business means. The family is a real estate issue. It is within its architecture, within its specific organization of space, and the desire is allowed to flow between the members of the family. So we are wondering, has the family improved even a little since Freud? Can hysterical sickness still be seen as a site of resistance? Is there any space for hope? The spa is no longer offers an escape from the family house because it is in the house. The house became the spa center in a way, and it's in the family. So what Kardashians seems to prove is that anything goes in the family as long as the family is strong. Speaking about strong family, definition of the family became one of the main tasks of some ex-Yugoslav post-socialist countries. A constitutional referendum was held in Croatia 3 years ago. The proposed amendment to the constitution would define marriage as being a union between a man and a woman, which would create a constitutional prohibition against same-sex marriage. 38% of voters voted, and 66% of them voted yes. So the referendum was called after a conservative organization U ime obitelji, which means on behalf of the family, established in Croatia in 2013 to, I quote, promote family values and to protect dignity of the family. This organization gathered more than 700,000 signatures demanding a referendum on this subject. The initiative was supported by conservative political parties, the Catholic Church, as well as by several other faith groups. Here in Slovenia, Družina, which means family, is the title of weekly Roman Catholic magazine, which was launched in 1952. A referendum on a bill legalizing same-sex marriage was held in Slovenia a year ago. The bill was rejected as a majority of voters voted against, and the votes against were more than 20% of registered voters. So earlier in 2015, the National Assembly passed a bill defining marriage as a union of two instead of union of man and woman. Conservative opponents, we can see them here on protesting in front of the parliament, opponents of the law, including a group called Za otroke gre, children are at stake, and otrok means a child, gathered enough signatures to force a referendum on that issue, and unfortunately here the family is not one of the institutions abandoned by the state. So let's leave this discussion for a second and let's create a different imaginations. Almost all amateur photography begins with family photos, and many art photographers also focus on family subjects. It seems that there is no family without children. And even Nan Goldin, known for her intimate and uncensored photographs of her cycle of friends whose lives revolved around drinks, drugs, obsession, joy, and death, sometimes couldn't resist. On a grand family photograph that was taken at Cetinje Biennial in Montenegro in 1994, members of the family of Yusuf Hadžifejzović and his friends gathered for the first time after 3 years of war in Bosnia and Herzegovina. In this project, Hadžifejzović once again implemented his idea of creating site-specific installations. The war in Bosnia-Herzegovina raged that year, and the artist came from Belgium, where he lived as a refugee, to Montenegro, where he was invited as an eminent artist. Instead of looking for material in depots in Cetinje, he asked the biennial organizers to invite to the exhibition all members of his large family who had for years been living there in a sort of hostile territory as second-class citizens. What else could Hadžifejzović do in Cetinje but exhibit his deposited kith and kin, which was so much in tune with the spirit of his art? This photography became a basis for his continuous performances through the years that followed. This is how it looked like after one of those performances, and it was followed by some other family photos, including always friends and statements. This one remains us on the settings of the congresses of Communist Party, or Yugoslav Communist Party, always behind this red, in front of this red flag. According to Marko Pogačnik, the relationships within the family can be either static or dynamic. For example, within his project Family of Water, Air and Fire, it is dynamic if the interaction between three components of his work, so fire, water and air, caused a process or transformation to occur. The elements in his projects were connected in dynamic, functional, and mutually defining relations that Pogačnik described as family. The real subject of these works was not their immediate materiality, but the relations and transformations of the materials used. Some examples will help us understand this type of work better. In water-air static, for instance, Pogacnik filled a number of plastic bags, half with water and half with air, and put them in a river. The part of the bag where the water was remained below the surface, while the part with the air remained above it. In air-water dynamic, however, he filled the bags only with air. He attached weights so they would stay in water, actually in the sea, thus creating a tension between the water and the air in the bag that was trying to rise above it. In water-fire dynamic, he set fire to a plastic bag filled with water. The result was air, carbon dioxide and steam, and plastic residue. These works were presented through documentary photographs and conceptual drawings that explained the relations between the elements and how they developed. The abstract and conceptual aspect of his work is even more obvious in his next family, called family of weight, measure and position. From the title itself, it's obvious that Pogacnik was dealing with relations, not materials. He was demonstrating the interdependent connections of three types of relations. The clearest example is a work in which Pogacnik hangs a series of different weights to lines that ran across razor blades. The position of each blade was different depending on the size of the weight. His interest clearly was in general and therefore abstract relations in principle. It would have been possible at any time to reinstall different projects from the series or even to replace them with a sketch, since it was the basic relationship that formed the content of the works, and this can be grasped only conceptually. So it was actually with these works that Ojo, in fact, entered the realm of conceptual art. In March 1971, the Ojo artists, along with their families, took up residence on an abandoned farm in the vicinity of the village of Šempas in Vipava Valley in the western part of Slovenia. The Šempas family, as it was called, was founded on ideas that had been developed during Ojo's last period. The main idea was to discover a way of life based on balanced relations within the family and between the group and its more or less immediate contexts. The decision of the Ojo group to form a commune and thus expand its artistic practices into the broader field of life and work turned a number of things upside down. Everything, along with the art, was now of equal importance. All areas of everyday life, agriculture, and the beginnings of a spiritual center. At the outset, the commune had 12 members, 2 of them children. The will to carry on with artistic work soon proved to be elusive and unrealistic due to the amount of work required around the house, the garden, and the fields. As a result, most members of the former Ojo group left the community in the following few months. A series of articles published in the magazine Mladina helped the commune out of crisis as younger people came and joined it. Artistic work was resumed 2 years later in the form of Pogacnik's concepts of art as collective work in which all members of the commune participated, including the children and random guests and visitors. There was a school of drawings and mobiles were made, comprising the 4 elements. The commune chose a name for itself as an artist group only when it was invited to publicly present its life and work, so the name the Šempas family. The decisive input here was the root of the Slovene word družina, family, which is družiti se, to come together. The members of the commune were deeply involved in meditation, breathing exercises, and similar esoteric practices. Drawing was a daily ritual, and the drawing style was directly connected to the standardistic drawings from the early 60s, while the subjects of their drawings were plants and other things found in their everyday life. They produced objects using traditional crafts, which represented their life in a concentrated way, revealing it as the intersection of many circulating nets and processes. They used conceptual drawing to present relationships. Instead of geometrical shapes, Pogačnik began using more organic forms, circles, spirals, curves that indicated these processes, their circulations and connections. The Šempas family dissolved in 1979 when it became an ordinary family of Marko Pogačnik, his wife and his daughters. We'll end with a quotation by Marko Pogačnik, who said, the discovery the Šempas family led to was a network of groups and individuals all over the planet who, each in their own way, strive to transform our civilization, which is highly destructive and insensitive to vital currents. By this, I mean the capitalist consumer society, interlayered with remnants of all kinds of appropriation ideologies. This moving of members of the whole group from to village of Šempas, we can call it as moving out of the light, like it was said before. They try to create their own ecological system, their common space. It was experimental. The fact is that this production was never taken seriously. We are always focused on these few years of the Oho production from late 60s, and this actually whole decade from 71 to 79 of the 70s, which is extremely interesting, is somehow hidden. Although it was presented on several occasions, for example, in Belgrade, even on Venice Biennial, and in Moderna galerija soon after the end of their project. So thank you.